Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers salvage the series with the Sunday walk-off win. We'll talk about the weekend. We'll talk about Michael Grove. We'll talk about Clayton Kershaw, and we'll talk about a few other things involving the Dodgers. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every single weekday. Remember, we're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Make it easy on yourself and subscribe in all those places, and you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, we are Locked On Dodgers. I'm Vince Samperio. That's my co-host, Jeff Snider. We're lifelong Dodger fans that have been able to spend some time in the press box and locker room, but we're not quite insiders, which is probably a good thing. But either way, we're here to bring the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So go ahead and subscribe and join us now, and let's talk some Dodgers. Jeff, it was almost going to be an episode that I know we never miss a day, but that makes you feel like you want to miss a day. The Dodgers were very close to being swept 4 games by the Phillies. By the end of the weekend, I'm pretty sure we were all tired of the Phillies, all tired of Bryce Harper, which luckily he didn't play on Sunday. But in the end, if you're going to lose 3 out of 4, I would say this is the best way to lose 3 out of 4. And we've talked about this for a winning series, not so much about losing series.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's any good way to lose 3 out of 4, but I guess this would be the best one. Good news is we don't have to see the Phillies again for like 4 days or some crap like that. So yeah, it was even with the win on Sunday, the Dodgers, we have our first 4-game losing streak to talk about since the very first year that we were Locked On Dodgers. 2019 is the last time they had a 4-game losing streak. So yeah, not great, but like you said, at least they did end on a high note.
Yeah, and we're not going to get too deep into the starting pitchers for the most part, like Walker Buehler, Julio Diaz. Those guys struggled, but unless it compounds with them struggling in their next start, we could just chalk it up to the Phillies offense being good, because the Dodgers are putting up runs in the first 2 games of the series. I guess we could start with the recent one. Michael Grove got the call up. The Dodgers were desperate because Clayton Kershaw went on the injured list, pushed everyone around, which we'll talk about after that. But let's talk about Michael Grove. He looked pretty good until the 1 inning, second inning, third inning. He got a ground ball for would have been the 3rd out. Didn't quite work out. We'll talk about that with Gavin Lux a little bit later. Ended up giving up a few base hits after that. 4 runs ended up coming across that inning. That's all he had. And other than, those 3 consecutive hits after the air, he looked pretty good and a guy that could contribute to the Dodgers, especially right now when they're going to need him.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do because he's probably not ready to be a full-time big leaguer right now. Today was his first game ever pitching above Double-A. But yeah, he held his own pretty well, and his stuff looked good. He had not great command, but decent command of his fastball. Used the Statcast had him throwing a slider and a cutter, but they really look like variations of the same pitch. The spin rate's about the same, and it was just the one they were calling a cutter had a little bit less drop and a little bit more velocity. But it seemed to me more like, Clayton Kershaw, his slider is anywhere from 84 to 89 miles an hour, and it's kind of seemed like the same thing to me, but I don't know. But that was mostly to right-handed hitters, and then he used the curveball more against left-handed hitters. And all the pitches look good. They're good pitches, and so you definitely can see the makings of a really good major league starting pitcher, because the fastball is 95, 96 miles an hour, and the curveball and slider are both really good pitches. So while he may not be ready for the big leagues right now, I'm definitely more excited about him than I was, because I haven't seen him pitch since he was pitching for Rancho Cucamonga, and he was not the same pitcher back then. Basically in the last year, he's totally remade himself as a pitcher from what I've heard. And he's going to be good. And I am interested to see if he gets more starts during during this time with Kershaw and Heaney both on the injured list. He and Pepio have both made decent cases to get some more action.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I think the curveball looked major league ready. If he can place it here and there, the fastball, he missed with the fastball a couple times, but luckily enough for him, he threw it hard enough to where he was still able to miss bats. And he struck out Castellanos. He struck out somebody else looking, like I said, that one he badly missed his spot, but it ended up working out. On his fastballs with 2 strikes, it looked like he was just rearing back and firing. I don't think he had much concern for exactly where the pitch is going to go. But that might just be how he looks. I haven't seen, like I said, I haven't seen him pitch in a while either. But
And I think the 2-run single for the 3rd and 4th runs, if I remember, that was the first pitch of the at bat, and I think he didn't hit any sort of good spot, and he paid the price for that. That's the things where that's kind of where you can tell the difference between a major league pitcher and a minor league pitcher. Pitching in the major leagues is like recognize that every pitch these guys are ready to jump on it, so you can't take a pitch off. Not to say Grove didn't focus on that pitch or whatever, but he missed his spot there and it cost him 2 runs.
Yeah. But let's talk about why Michael Grove was pitching. And that's one of the reasons is because Clayton Kershaw was supposed to start on Friday. And then we found out Friday morning that he was going on the injured list with something most of us have probably never heard of. There was a lot of different people saying what it actually was. But basically it's, I don't even know what's the final thing. It's the
SI joint, which I thought was in the hip, and I think it is. I think your SI joint is in your hip. But one thing I've learned in my years as a fat man is that the hip and the back are very closely related, and so it's entirely possible that a back issue caused the inflammation in the hip. Because what Dave Roberts said was that it's similar to Kershaw's previous back issues that he's had. It does seem like
he said his back locked up on the flight,
just like it did in 2014 or whenever that was.
Yeah.
And so it does seem like maybe this was not quite precautionary, but it seems like they caught this pretty early. Basically put him on the IL at the first sign, and I respect that. It's not an ideal time. It's not a convenient time for Kershaw to be on the injured list. And I like the fact that the Dodgers are taking the long view of this and didn't say, dude, Kersh, we need you to power through this, that it's not a good time for us. They say, you know what, long term, we want a healthy Kershaw. And, it's the same mindset that caused them to take him out of the perfect game. It's like, you're not going to pitch through pain. You're not going to throw 110 pitches for a personal accomplishment. You are going to, we want you here. And, the thing with Kershaw was always he's going to be good when he's pitching. The question is his health. And so that's why he's perfect for a team like the Dodgers, that they have unlimited money. And so what would hurt the Dodgers is somebody who's not good. And, if Kershaw was bad but healthy, that would be hard, because it's going to be hard to take Kershaw out of the rotation just because he's struggling, because he's a legend, But Kershaw is going to be good when he's healthy. But I think when they signed him, they knew we're going to shoot for 20 to 25 starts out of him. We're not expecting 33.
Yeah, and the other thing is, maybe in another time he would have pushed through, but he even said himself that he wasn't feeling good. Like it wasn't feeling good. He wasn't concerned about it being an issue beyond the 15 days he has to spend on the injured list. But he did say, like, at that time, Friday, it wasn't feeling good. And I don't think he would have been able to pitch that Friday either way. So it sucks. And it's something we've seen now with Kershaw almost every year, the last 5-6 years of going on the injured list, something kind of back related. It's been a while for that, but like I said, it's more so I wouldn't say precautionary, because obviously it did hurt them, but just more so the fact of they're not going to push it. They're not going to try to push it. And, they were going to have to find a way to make it work. And, Michael Grove did a good enough job. The Dodgers ended up winning that game. Buehler and Julio, I don't know if they got thrown off by getting pushed up one day. I don't think they blame it on that. I don't think we would blame it on it. It was just a matter of the Phillies were hitting this weekend and the Dodgers weren't hitting as much. But we'll see what happens. Andrew Heaney started a throwing program. He's supposed to come back in probably, hopefully, 2 to 3 weeks. So eventually the Dodgers will get back to full strength. But right now, we might see more Michael Grove or Ryan Pepio. We're definitely going to see Ryan Pepio again. And who knows, we might see Michael Grove again.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's how it goes. We're going to talk a little bit more about Gavin Lux and some other stuff from over the weekend. First, let's talk about BetOnline. BetOnline is the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. They got all the latest odds, all the latest news, all the latest sports development, everything you need right there on their convenient to use website. They got scores, they got live betting, they got odds, they got esports, they got the podcasts. If for any of the Locked On podcasts you're looking for, you can find them there. They even got some USFL news. They got tennis. They got horse racing. They got a bunch of stuff on there. So if you're looking for a one-stop shop to find everything you want in the sports world, BetOnline.net has you covered. They continue search for all your sports wagering information from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website on your laptop or mobile device. Learn all about the trends. Learn all about the action, and get in on it. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast with recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts. Sometimes that is Jeff or I, usually Jeff. But the Locked On Network is one network that can take you through the season like no other network. And the Locked On Now podcast is part of that. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, Jeff. Let's hop in. The player that was trending on Twitter early in the day, in the Dodger game day, was Gavin Lux. Luckily for him, he was also trending later in the day, but for a better reason. Gavin Lux made an error, let a ball go between his legs. That would have been the third out. And then Michael Grove ended up giving up, like it was mentioned earlier, those 3 consecutive hits. 4 runs ended up scoring. Those 4 runs ended up being the only runs the Phillies would score that day. But then in the bottom of the ninth, Gavin Lux came up with runners on first and third. And with Chris Taylor taking off on the pitch, hit a ball down the right field, not the line per se, but down right field. Chris Taylor scored easily. The Dodgers, Bellinger and Chris Taylor scored, and the Dodgers won. But this is more, not so much a conversation about that specifically, but just about Gavin Lux's defense. Because maybe we magnify at this point anything he does defensively that is not good. Maybe gets a little bit more magnified than anybody else at this point.
Yeah, and whatever it is, I know that in previous years his defense was questionable, and so I don't know if it's just lingering effects of that. He's made 3 errors now this year. 2 of them were in this series, and then they've all been high profile. They've all had kind of major consequences for the team, so I'm sure that doesn't help. He also, in the error he made against the Diamondbacks, I think the very next day he made another almost throwing error that Freddie Freeman saved him from an error. That in fact, originally the umpires called the guy safe, and then replay showed that Freeman kept his toe on the bag, so saved him. But I made a meme because I'm young and cool, Vince. I'm going to pop it up on the screen here on YouTube. This is kind of what I thought of. It says, some of y'all never saw Mariano Duncan and Jose Offerman play defense, and it shows. That's yeah, I mean, Gavin Lux's defense, it's fine.
Pedro
It's
Guerrero
not.
too, right?
What's that?
Pedro Guerrero too, and they tried him at third.
Oh yeah, Pedro Guerrero was terrible. Steve Sachs early in his career. By the time by the time I was paying much attention, Sachs had turned into a solid defender. Dodgers have had some bad defenders over the year. I mean, Jose Offerman, I think, made 45 errors at shortstop for the Dodgers one year. Gavin Lux has made 3. He's on pace for what's that? We're a month and a half in, so he's on pace for like 12 this year. Yeah, not ideal. It's not great. He knows he needs to work on it. But the other thing for me is they've been 3 different kinds of errors. He made a throwing error. He made a fielding error today. And his other error in this Philly series was he got caught flat-footed on a pop-up to the infield, didn't expect the base runner to be tagging up, and he made a bad throw on that. But it's a different kind of bad throw. So it's not even like, oh, he really struggles with this one thing. No, I mean, people make errors. And the thing that annoyed me so much was people just – anytime people chalk it up to a personality, like a character flaw, when somebody messes up, like these guys are trying hard, Gavin Lux, I said it on Twitter. He didn't make an error because he doesn't care or because he's mentally checked out. He made an error because people make errors. Even the best defenders make errors, and Gavin Lux made an error. And yeah, does he make too many errors? He might. And I'm sure that's something he's working on. It's really hard playing second base in the shift where the ball is going from the dirt to the grass before you field it. I think what he was expecting was for the ball to come up a little bit, and it stayed down on him because he never got his glove down to the ball. Well, that's what you learn from. He's 24 years old. He's, it is what it is. And it's not an excuse for the error other than to say no player in Major League history has ever gone a career without making an error, has ever even gone a season without making an error. People make errors. And, but knowing Gavin Lux, 24 years old, made that huge error and watched what happened. He knew that it led to all 4 runs that the Phillies scored in this game. The Dodgers finally got a good pitching performance, and Gavin Lux single-handedly ruined that basically with that error. And knowing that that was on his mind, then he had 2 strikeouts in the game, all of that, and then to come up in the bottom of the 9th inning and to put that swing on that curveball from Corey Knebel and hit the walk-off hit, like it's any walk-off hit is exciting, but I was so happy for Gavin Lux. I was happy the Dodgers won, but I was just happy for Gavin Lux. It's maybe because I'm old enough to be his dad. And so like older players, okay, yeah, I'm happy for you, but this is a kid, and for him to put aside or whatever, however much that was weighing on him, but you could see in his interview with Kirsten Watson after the game that it was on his mind a lot and on his heart. He felt terrible for Michael Grove and making him throw those extra pitches. Grove maybe could have gone 5 innings, but he had to throw 20 extra pitches in that inning because of Gavin Lux. All those things were on his mind, and to be able to set that aside and get that hit and come up not swinging for the fences, which is my instinct would be, I want to hit a 18-run homer right now to walk it off, but knowing I've got speed on first base and the tying run on third base, a base hit right here is all I need. And he did it. It was very, very impressive to me and mature and showed that all of the stuff that I saw after the error about him being mentally checked out and he doesn't care was just utter garbage, because he clearly cares and clearly is a lot more mentally solid than most of us who didn't make the big leagues. And that's why he's in the big leagues and we're not. And because I'm old.
Yeah. With Lux, I mean, obviously you are more particular to him than I am, just in general so far, like on this podcast. I don't have any like disdain towards him. I just wasn't as high on him. I didn't quite see it. It's still a mixed bag in terms of what he's going to be at the end of all this. I mean, he started off hot, has been just kind of treading water here the last couple of weeks. Has been able to hold down whatever job he has, mostly because there's not a lot behind him as well. But for the most part, what we've heard this year about Gavin Lux is that change in mentality, that change in maturity and everything else. And this is part of it. Whether you want to believe that or not, it is a sign of maturity where you can make a big error like that. It kind of looms over you the entire game. You didn't hit. It's not like you came back right after that at bat and had the big hit. Like you mentioned, he struck out a couple of times. I think one before, maybe one after. But he still was able to come through in the big moment when they needed him against a pitcher that's pretty good. He hung that curve a little bit, but Gavin Lux sat on it and drove it in and did what he needed to do. So for Lux in general, just in terms of like the fan stuff, I don't know if it's a matter of, he's kind of one of the first top prospects that we've seen that hasn't quite panned out right away. We saw Corey Seager come up right away, good, Rookie of the Year. We saw even Cody Bellinger come up right away, good, Rookie of the Year. We saw Walker Buehler come up, not so much the end of 2017, but 2018 came up, was good. I don't know if it's maybe part of that. Maybe it's just, like you said, he makes the mistakes in situations that lead themselves to more scrutiny because they are a little bit more high profile. But whatever it is, Gavin Lux is there. He's an everyday player for this team, and they're going to need him to continue to win and continue to be good. And like I said, I don't think there's anything on his side where it's, I don't care about defense, or I don't care about this, or I don't care about the game. It's just a matter of, and it's also another part too where it is a mental side. And for him, a guy who's had trouble throwing the ball, or the yips, whatever you want to say, that's a mental thing. So you kind of don't want to think too much. So you maybe don't want to, if you see a guy like, oh man, like really showing emotion after he makes the error, he's in his own head, which isn't probably the best thing. So it's just a matter of a bunch of different stuff. But, Gavin Lux has been good enough this year and hopefully continues to build on that.
Yeah. And one of the things I've been preaching to the 11U team I coach is that there's only so much you can learn from winning and from success. You learn a lot more from failure than you do from success. And so if you can, even Yasiel Puig, you look at when he first came up and some of the dumb mistakes he used to make. And with Puig, it was magnified because, you know, growing up in Cuba and, you know, just kind of a different system there. Puig was so talented that he was in the major leagues making the mistakes that most of us got beaten out of us in high school or college, you know, but he was basically having to learn from those mistakes in the major leagues. But with Lux, you know, he's making these errors. You can guarantee that he is going to learn from this, and the things that are going to make him a better player a year or 2 years or 5 years from now are the kind of some of these growing pains that he's going through right now. One other thing that I read about after this is that Justin Turner, did you see Justin Turner actually talked to Gavin Lux during the game and said, here's something I noticed from the dugout watching you in your batting stance. He noticed that his approach is a little bit different than it was earlier in the season when he was having more success. He said earlier in the season he was a little bit more backloaded, more of a 60-40, and that lately he's been more 50-50. And JT told him about that. And so Lux actually made a mid-game adjustment and then had the walk that led to him scoring the third run and then the big walk-off hit. And so obviously it's not just going to be, okay, only success from now on. But I thought that was cool, kind of shades of Mookie Betts and Austin Barnes from a year or two ago. And, you know, that Justin Turner, even when he isn't doing everything we would expect him to do at the plate, he's still providing that veteran leadership.
Yeah, and that's what we came to expect from him and, you know, the guys on this team. We're going to talk about Yency Almonte. We're going to talk a little bit about more of the weekend and just in general how this series was close to being 3 out of 4 the other way. But first, let's talk about Built Bars. Imagine putting your finger into a plastic tub of birthday cake frosting. I'm sure some of us have done it before. I know I've done it before, and frosting is good. So why not bring that to your life, but in a healthier way? And that's what you can do now with the birthday cake puff from Built. We just got some birthday cake puffs. I just picked mine up the other day. And honestly, I can't tell you that they aren't one of the best tasting protein. Well, this is a protein puff, but protein out there. It tastes like birthday cake, which is not my birthday, but I love it. And you get the high protein, high fiber, low calorie, low sugar, everything good about birthday cake and frosting without all the bad stuff. And Built.com has it all there for you. Go buy them right now. I don't know how long they're going to be there, but I wouldn't wait too long because they're going to go fast. And if they don't have them forever, you're going to regret it. So go to Built.com, get your birthday cake puffs now. You can get 15% off your order with the promo code LOCKED15. That's Built.com, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. All right, Jeff. One guy we wanted to mention, we didn't mention him in Friday's episode, even though he pitched on Thursday, looked pretty good. Came in, got in a little bit of a jam, but pitched out of it. Made Odubel Herrera swing at a pitch that went between his legs, which is probably a little bit more on Odubel Herrera's side than Yency Almonte's. But Yency Almonte's stuff is pretty nasty. So let's talk about him. Is this a guy that can have a future here in the Dodgers bullpen?
Yeah, that slider is really good. You know, obviously it was a bad swing. Basically, Odubel Herrera guessed wrong.
Yeah.
He guessed fastball and swung at a fastball and turned out to be a slider. And yeah, you know, I saw Pablo Sandoval a couple times over the years swing at pitches that hit him. And I don't know if this is worse than that. It's definitely more fun to watch. You know, the ones that hit him is fun, but I think it's harder to miss Pablo Sandoval. You know, if you throw a pitch at Pablo Sandoval, there's not any gaps to get through. You know, it's going to hit him. But Odubel Herrera is a little bit more wiry, and so it got through the legs.
I think Joe Davis's reaction was it was a natural reaction.
It was great. Yeah. It was a lot of fun, and it like I think the fact that it was Yency Almonte and that slider that we've seen a bunch in the last few days, that like, yeah, that is a legit pitch, and so that was just kind of exhibit A. You know, if you go to court, prove that Yency Almonte's slider is legit. Okay, well, here's Odubel Herrera swinging at one that went through his legs. Oh yeah, case closed. You know, and so I think some of it was that, and you know, that he's not gonna. He walked a couple guys on Sunday, and that's actually a little bit out of character for him, which is a good thing. You know, not anything to worry too much about. And so he got himself into a little bit of a jam, but for the most part, his stuff so far seems really, really good, and not unhittable, but hard to hit for sure. And that's what we're looking for right now.
At the very least, this weekend he pitched against the Phillies twice and only gave up one hit. He did give up multiple base runners, mostly on Sunday with walks, but he, like I said, hard to hit. And a guy that the Dodgers, obviously they picked him up for a reason. Anytime they pick somebody up, it's for a reason, something they see, something they want to try to get out of them. They seem to have done that here. Now, if he can get that control underway, then yeah, he's a guy that can help out this Dodger bullpen, whether it's now, whether it's in sporadic times throughout the year. I'm going to assume he has options because he's a younger guy. So if we don't see him continued right now with the Dodgers, I'm sure we're going to see him throughout the year. Like I said, assuming he has that option. But yeah, it's a guy. I mean, we've seen a bunch of guys now. We saw Evan Phillips in his pitch. We've seen Yency Almonte now. We've seen different guys come up and utilize different pitches that plays up and been able to do well. And this might be the next guy in that order.
Yeah, according to Fangraphs, he does not have any options left. Yeah, he'll be 28 in 2 days after I turn 45. Can you believe it? I sure can. Yeah, he was one thing I knew he was of Dominican descent. I just assumed he was Dominican. Turns out he's Dominican American. I discovered when Kirsten Watson sat down with him before his first game on Friday and hearing him talk, I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah, he's from Miami. Like he didn't talk the way I expected him to. So that doesn't matter. It's just something that I noticed, but his parents are both, I think, from the Dominican Republic. They're both Dominicans. So, I'm excited about him. And the fact that he doesn't have any options means he probably will be around for a little while. Shane Green, on the other hand, even though he pitched 2 good innings, he got the win. I suspect the DFA is coming soon for him because they're going to need that 40-man spot at some point.
Yeah. So Reyes Maranta also went down. I think Eric Clevenger. I don't know if he's up. He's up or down. He's down right now. I think he was up and then down. But either way, the Dodgers, they got a lot of moving parts. They're going to have a lot of moving parts here over the next couple weeks. But let's talk about the series as a whole. We talked about Thursday's game already. The Dodgers came back from down, had bases loaded and nobody out. Only ended up with 2 runs needed. They only ended up they didn't put up any runs that night. The next night, Friday night, they were down most of the game. Justin Turner comes up with a big home run in the bottom of the 9th to tie the game. The Dodgers go to extras, and it didn't go their way. They once again had bases loaded, nobody out, chasing 4 this time. They ended up getting just 1 run out of it. Saturday's game was kind of one of those where you weren't really ever in it. Julio struggled, and the offense never really got on board. And then obviously Sunday's game with the walk-off win. So even though this weekend ended up being losing 3 out of 4, not fun, making you hate the Phillies, it was one of those that, we've talked about where games can go either way. And, Thursday and Friday's game could have went either way, and also Sunday's game. So it's a matter of, Thursday, Friday didn't go in the Dodgers' favor. Sunday ended up going in the favor. One other time, probably later in the year, it'll be the other way around, or 2 go in their favor and 1 don't. It's just a matter of how things go in baseball.
Yeah, and I've talked about this in the past. When we think about 2019 and all those walk-off wins, there was 10 or 11 walk-off wins that year, and how exciting that is, and all the excitement. But you had walk-off weekend where the 3 straight walk-offs against the Rockies, but that means that they were inches away from losing all 3 of those games. The Dodgers very well could have got swept by the Rockies in that series, and their next 2 games, I think they were the Diamondbacks, the next 2 home games a week later. And they had 2 more walk-offs. And I mean, one of those, Greg Holland had to walk 85 straight guys to get that walk-off win. It was like the Dodgers, every walk-off win means you almost lost. And they're exciting and awesome. And, I'm not criticizing walk-off wins, but I'm saying, when we were talking last week about the boring series against the Cubs, that's why boring wins are fun, because you don't got to stress about them. And there's very little risk of a boring win turning into a loss. And what we saw here, on Thursday night, the Dodgers had multiple chances to win that. They had a chance to take the lead in the 8th, and then Kimbrel would have pitched the 9th and they probably win. And then they had a chance in the 9th, like you said. And then Friday night, they had chances. They got it tied up. A few things go a different way, and they win those games. And if the Dodgers had won 3 out of the 4 games of this series, we would have a totally different feel about everything right now. Even if they had just been those little tweaks, even though if everything else is the same, starting pitching struggled, gave up too many runs to the Phillies. But if they win those games, we're feeling better about things. And so I think it's important to keep that perspective over a long season. And yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that the Dodgers starting pitching is struggling right now. And I don't even know if it'll make me feel better if they all pitch better against the Diamondbacks, because I don't like the idea of, oh, they only struggle against really good hitting teams. Well, there might be one or two really good hitting teams in the playoffs. So I want to know what's going on, So I'm actually looking forward to the series in Philadelphia next week. Hopefully the pitchers can bounce back and shut the Phillies down. And, it was good to see the bullpen shut the Phillies down on Sunday. That kind of, even if the Dodgers had lost this game, I'd be feeling a little bit better about it, knowing, oh, good, the bullpen did better. They did their job a little bit more. All those things. It's little things, and wins and losses are obviously the goal, but over a long season, there's so many other things that come into play other than just the win and the loss.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And I mean, even after losing 3 out of 4, losing 4 out of 5, losing 4 in a row, the Dodgers still ended up the weekend. I'm pretty sure they're still on top of the NL West. So, regardless, every other team's going to go through this as well. The Giants got demolished on Sunday and on prime time and on national television. Albert Pujols got to pitch against them. He ended up giving up 4 runs, but, at the end, it didn't really matter. That was a fun moment. So there's going to be games. There's going to be a series like this. But for the most part, from what we know, the Dodgers are going to win a lot more series than they lose. They're going to win a lot more games than they lose. And until it becomes, more of an issue, if the rotation goes another time through the rotation with struggles or 2 more times or faces the Phillies again and struggles, whatever the case is, that's when we can feel a little bit more, whatever. I don't think one time facing the Phillies, I had tweeted a simple thing of just, I'm tired of the Phillies on Saturday, I believe. And, Phillies fans found it, Dodger fans found it. It was a weird mix, and like, too many people arguing him. Some people was arguing that the Phillies are stealing signs, and I was like, there's a lot going on here. But at the end of the day, like I said, even with everything going that way, the Dodgers were basically 1 or 2 base hits away from winning 3 out of 4. And, there's no moral victories. Obviously, they did lose 3 out of 4. But there would be a lot less hope if they had just lost 7-2 Friday or Thursday, lost 8-3, whatever, and lost 8-3 again, and then walked it off.
Yeah. Good news is they scored a bunch of runs this weekend. And even though they got 1 run to show for, or 1 win to show for it, scored a bunch of runs. The pitching is hopefully going to get better. And my mentions are just full of people who claim to be Dodger fans saying, see, I told you the Dodgers suck. So apparently that's how some people cope. And I won't judge you for that. I'll just mute you on Twitter.
Yeah. One note real quick on the Cody Bellinger high fastball thing. The double he hit was on a high fastball, not quite as high, but high fastball.
Don't shortchange him. It was a triple.
Oh yeah, triple.
Yeah, up in the zone, 96 miles an hour. So
yeah, so there we go. So good things from the offense. Mookie's hitting now. Freddie wasn't hitting as much. Trey Turner's not hitting as much, but they're still continuing to churn out and put up runs. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the game against the Diamondbacks. If you need something else to listen to, check out Locked On MLB with our buddy Sully. He brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present, and it's also free and available wherever you get podcasts. Other ways to find us, you can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. You can find Jeff on Twitter at Snider. You can find me at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. For questions, comments, concerns, we're always taking questions. I know we have a question on Clayton Kershaw. We're going to try to get to it this week. It's kind of not evergreen, but not so much pressing, but we'll get to that. So just keep sending in questions, even if we don't get to them right away. You can also send us an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can always leave us a voicemail or send us a text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope to be with us. So when you get in your car, or if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.